I am Halli Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, where along with my partner in politics, veteran White House correspondent, and Time and Newsweek alum Matthew Cooper, we slice and dice all things politics, and some days, our lawmakers too. Before we get started, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show podcast is always available at hallicasserjayne.com and wherever you most like to listen to your podcasts. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Halli Show Quotes. Now, on this week's episode of the Halli Casser-Jayne Show podcast, it's a very Trumpy 4th of July. Kaboom! The Trump Organization and Chief Financial Officer Alum Weisselberg pleaded not guilty to crimes related to what prosecutors called a sweeping scheme to avoid taxes on compensation for the CFO and other executives. But that's just where we begin. Let's get started. It's been a wild week in politics. It's Halli and Matt time. Here we go. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Halli.
You are so much more chipper than I this morning.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm taking it, but,
Yeah, it's like, a holiday's coming, and it's like, come.
Yeah, really.
Right? You limp your way into it.
Once, it's. I think the post office is not delivering today, but the markets are open. July 4th on a weekend, it's a confusing holiday.
It should always be.
Some people are taking Monday off. Some people are taking the Friday off. Some people are taking both off.
Yeah, that's how it works. But it's here, thank goodness.
It's here.
It's here. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show, but for now, let's do this. I'm going to begin, Matt, with my weekly appeal. Again, COVID hit home, but not in the United States, but in Uganda, where my so-called foster son got it. Because in Uganda, although there are some vaccinations available, they've been told, because there are so few, you have to be over 50. He's hardly there. It's a worldwide pandemic. We mustn't forget. And if they get it there, they're on their own. And he had a pretty bad case, lost his sense of smells, taste, etc. Museveni is saying there's an herb you can take, sort of like a Trumpian kind of deal.
You're right.
Right? Stop it. But bringing it back to the United States, here we are. This Delta variant is awful. Cases are up 10% last week. 99% of the cases in hospitals are people who are unvaccinated. I'm going to say it again. Get vaccinated. Got to do it, right? Got to do it. Just got to do it. Protect yourself. Protect us all.
These vaccines are working better than anyone could have expected.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, the bad reaction rate is infinitesimal. The success against the various variants, the Delta variant, the South African variant, the British variant, the Saskatchewan variant, whatever variant has come up, these vaccines have been very, very good at dealing with them. And because the RNA ones can be restructured, they can be, you can make them even better at another point. It would be crazy not to get vaccinated, and it's kind of just sick not to get vaccinated when so much of the world is desperate for vaccines. I mean, really, it's at a certain point, it's just irresponsible. It's not really even a considered choice. You're just not doing the right thing if you're not getting vaccinated.
And you're being stupid.
Yeah. Now, look, if you're super young, obviously they don't have vaccines for really young kids, and your risk profile is a lot lower. And but you should still get it. If you're over 12, you should get it.
Absolutely. So, Matt and I will appeal to all of you who are listening. Yeah. Just do it. Just do it. Get it over with. He and I both have survived it. You'll survive it. But that's the least what a week of politics. My head is spinning. I guess we have to begin with, of course, yesterday's indictment of Trump finance guy Alum Weisselberg. Could I just tell you the words that I got stuck on here?
Yeah.
You're going to laugh. Grand larceny.
Right.
That to me that punched me. I went, yeah, because you can get numb to all this. We all knew it was coming, et cetera, et cetera. But grand larceny, that's like off of a bad TV show from the 50s and early 60s. I mean, good Lord, right? The man who runs things for the former president of the United States. What was it? 1.7 million in perks and cash bonuses. I'm going to start here and then I'm going to turn it over to you. Look, I don't remember where I read it and who said it, but this was what was said. This is just a garden variety corruption. Can I just tell you something, Matt? Garden variety hood. That is who Trump is. And I don't understand why most people or a lot of people still don't get that. He's just not even a high life hood. He's a low life hood. He's doing this over $1.7 lousy million. Talk to me.
Yeah, well, it's you can look at it a few ways, right? On one hand, this is a serious crime that the Manhattan DA has brought up in terms of tax fraud and, as you said, larceny, and the company got indicted as well as the chief financial officer. Weisselberg, a longtime accountant and consigliere to the Trump family. And, in that sense, it's definitely a big deal. Compared to what people were saying a couple of years ago or 6 months ago, if Trump gets indicted, it's going to be on, espionage and, whatever. It's not that, but, it's serious, and they're going to, they're going to try to pressure Weisselberg to flip on Trump. They're going to use the specter of prison to scare a 73-year-old guy into flipping. My guess is they won't be successful on that part. But we'll see if they have enough to, indict other people, including the kids, as time goes on here. So it was an interesting indictment.
I think it was a very interesting, and it was incredibly well done, and the facts are there. I mean, I don't think there's much room for him not being convicted on this. They dotted their I's and they crossed their T's. There's no question about that. Something that, like George Conway said, I just thought this was true. There's no way Trump didn't know what was going on in his own business. So if you think of it in those terms...
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, no, there's no way.
Because Trump knew about some of the specifics, like, keeping this apartment for Weisselberg. I mean, if you haven't followed it, the case is basically like, Weisselberg got paid and compensated in all these ways he didn't pay taxes on. So he got a free apartment. The company picked up his grandkids' private school tuition. He didn't pay taxes on that stuff.
Right, exactly.
So that's basically
the crux of it. Yeah. And the thing about it is we need to discuss the Republican Trump response to this. They're much better, and Trump is the master, at the PR game. And that concerns me because I saw a bunch of pundits on MSNBC and CNN kind of fumbling along on legality. And the fight here is not that's the job of the DA. That is not the job of the political pundits who are on the Democratic side. And it's sad to see how really, again, I'm going to say it, bad they are at countering what they knew was coming. They just go into the brain and they don't do the heart of PR. And I think the one person, on the other hand, who did do that, there were two we can discuss. Mary Trump, who is Donald's niece, who said something. She showed up on last night on TV after being off for a while, and she said that she believes that the kids are going to give the father up before Weisselberg will. And I agree with her, because Weisselberg, I think I said this last week, was a lot of the mastermind here. And he didn't it wasn't, Weisselberg isn't Trump's find, it was his father's find. And he had a hell of a relationship with Trump Sr. And he almost was like, I think there's a fatherly kind of relationship between he and Donald, a legacy.
I'm sure that's right. Yeah.
Right. And that makes it a whole different ball game here. I know that Michael Cohen said, he'll give it up eventually because once you have your hands, clasped behind your back and, tied up, you start to think differently. But I think that Weisselberg is the brains of Trump. Trump is the PR guy and the front man and the showman. But I think that Weisselberg was calling all the shots. You got any thoughts? I mean, on that?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. We'll see where it goes. It seemed like a pretty firm indictment.
And there were books. They kept books.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear he got this compensation and he didn't pay tax on it. And so
here's my question to you. My question to you is, do you think this is the beginning of something that's going to be a, tick-tock, or do you think this was a one-shot deal? Would they have gone after Weisselberg if they didn't have anything more that they're going after, or already have? Just have to figure out how to make it work for them.
I just don't know. I mean, sometimes these things end with a sort of, a whimper. I mean,
Vance is going to go out on a whimper? Here's my take. Here's my take.
In a few months. I mean,
right,
I don't know if they're going to get what they want on his watch.
Here's my thing. I don't think he would have put himself out on a limb. I think he would have just kept it going, quiet, and doing nothing if there was no more there, rather than risk looking like this is all I have.
Yeah, could be. I think it could be.
What? I haven't heard that in months. Could be.
Yeah, it could be. Sure. I think that's the most likely outcome.
Yeah. Just to keep all this stuff in perspective, the kids are in trouble. I mean, Ivanka, some of this has already slipped out. It's going to be really interesting to see. I just said that Mary Trump said that she thought that the kids would give up the father before the father would give up Weisselberg. I'm just curious as to whether or not these kids get mixed up in this and what's going to happen to them. I think there are a lot of people who would like to see Ivanka go down with her daddy. But then there's a crazy video of Junior looking like he's so coked out he doesn't know which end is up. Have you seen that?
Have not seen it.
Oh, my God. Do go find that, because he's not looking well. He's not acting well. Meanwhile, Trump has all these rallies planned. There's a problem, and I know that he wanted to do it because he knew what was coming and he set it up, but it was canceled in North Carolina. And I don't know what's going on in Florida because he and DeSantis are at World War III right now, because DeSantis said, with what's going on in Surfside, this is not the time for you to do a rally. And Trump said, oh, but yes, it is. So I was looking before we went online with the show to see where they were on that. I don't know. I do know that the one that was in, I think it's North Carolina, was canceled today. Yeah.
Yeah. Where was the Trump rally? Where's it supposed to be? What part of the state?
Oh, gosh. I think Tampa.
Tampa. So not in the South Florida.
No, but all this state is, just all eyes are focused on Surfside right now in the state. I don't care who you are. Everybody's eyes are focused on that. And, there are a lot. Every town has its row of condominiums on the beach, and everybody's freaked out.
Yeah.
Am I next?
Right.
And we've been having some wacky weather, and now there may be a hurricane coming, and it's like, and to jump ahead for a second, there was a kumbaya moment yesterday with DeSantis and President Biden, and that just shocked the hell out of everybody. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here because there was another thing that I wanted to talk about before we got to the condominium thing. So let me digress and go back to where I wanted to go first before I forget to go there, and that's this. Roger Stone So while all of this crazy is going on with Trump and Weisselberg and the whole 9 yards, turns out that Stone is in more trouble. Are you aware of this?
No.
And another one that's off the radar. It's like the press can't handle it all. I don't know. But even though his Stone's sentence was commuted by Trump, there's a civil suit still going on against him. And now there's this. He secured a loan for his Florida condo while he owed the IRS $2 million, and there was a 1.5 lien on him by the feds. And now the Department of Justice is attempting to seize the $400,000 condo he purchased while all of this was going on, and he was under criminal indictment. And here's the interesting thing. The mortgage lender says he wasn't aware at the time that Stone were involved. Otherwise, he would have called off the deal. And one of the attorneys who facilitated the transaction was this guy, Paul, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I think it's Kalod. He's somehow tied up in this whole crazy thing with the sex thing, with the sexual abuse of minors with Gates. So you heard it here, folks. Go look this one up and see what this is about. Crazy, huh?
Okay. Well,
I can't wait to see what happens here.
I'm surprised he's only in a $400,000 condo.
I think his money is El Gondo.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I mean, he gave it all to lawyers. Didn't he have one of those go-to pages that you give people money to? I think
Yeah. Well, sure.
Yeah. But this was a shady deal. Typical Florida shady deal. Everything in Florida. Anyway, I wanted to put that in the mix here because it says to me that wherever they can, they're going after Trump, the Justice Department, and courts and stuff. If they don't get him here, they're going to get him there. That's my thought. I do want to go back to the condominium collapse. Too sad for words, and it's I want to tell you something, Matt. It's a tragedy that didn't have to happen, kind of like COVID, because they knew. They knew
repairs were needed. Is what you mean?
The whole board quit. I think it was December 19th because they couldn't get anybody to cough up the cash for what they knew needed to be done. I mean, these stories are going to start to trickle up and out. This was not unknown. They brought all sorts of people. And then you have to ask what the hell is going on with the city and the state on inspection. And we may be getting ahead of ourselves, but this should never have happened. Well, a little 2-year-old and a 8-year-old were found. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. I don't know. And there was a building collapse, by the way, yesterday in Washington. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, infrastructure. Okay, so let's move on. let's move on to Kevin McCarthy. Can we move on to Kevin McCarthy?
You can do whatever's good for you.
Talk to me about Kevin McCarthy.
Well, the Republican leader in the House is upset about the inquiry into the January 6th attack on the Capitol. He opposed the formation of this commission. He didn't want to do it. There is no commission. There's going to be a select committee out of the House, and he opposed its formation. And he was really livid when Nancy Pelosi appointed Liz Cheney as one of the members of this panel as a Democratic appointee, which is pretty unusual. But he went bonkers. According to reports, he threatened to pull committee assignments from her, which is a very big sanction and something he was unwilling to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene. It happened with Democratic votes, but he didn't favor it. So, he's throwing all his anger into stopping this commission.
He is the minority leader.
Not stopping it.
Well, of course he's not stopping it, but I'm more interested in this in terms of who he is in the hierarchy of our government, and that this is how he is acting and what he has become. And I don't think people understand just how scary this is of what's going on in this right-wing crazy that is the GQP. It's not the Republican Party. I mean, I think I use the term GQP for a reason, because I don't want to say the Republican Party is bonkers. It's, I don't agree with it a lot. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. But this is about something very different. And I just don't think that Mr. and Mrs. Average American are understanding just how infiltrated this government of ours is. We're not going to call them wackadoodles because that, kind of like diffuses who they are, what they have, and the kind of power they have and what they're really trying to do. I mean, you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, I mean, they're all in on the MAGA stuff, and they don't want to, they don't want to piss off that part of their party.
But I don't want to call it MAGA either because Matt, this truly has a really frightening banana republic fascist, breaking every rule that is the American way and the American Constitution for something that I'm not even sure any of us understand where they're going with any of this other than to grab power. I just don't think this is being talked about. I think it's been cliched rather than being talked about properly as to the danger it is to the Republic.
But what's the it? You're talking about the committee or?
No, I'm speaking in general. When you have the minority leader of the House willing to throw everybody under the bus and the entire, look what happened. 1812 was the last time the Capitol was attacked? And, to him it's a political thing and it's not a stand with America. And how could something like this happen? Because it's to, either he's on his knees to Trump or they all agree with what Trump is about. That's the thing that people don't understand. And I think is being lost in all of this because Trump is such a big character. We're losing sight of the power grab and the kind of radicalism and the kind of, fascist, oligarchical, whatever, banana republic that these people are standing for here in honor of the causes that they believe. I mean, we're going to talk about the court in a second. It too. Come on, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I do.
And the response from the Pelosi's, they keep staying within the proper, measured, dignified, all the things that Congress used to be response. And little by little, these guys chip away at this kind of thing. I mean, I wonder what happens at the end of the day. I mean, Adam Kinzinger was another one because, he said he didn't give a hoot, but I didn't see him running over to the side of the Democrats on the commission and saying, I'll volunteer.
Well, I think he is.
Yeah. You think what?
I don't understand. I mean, she wasn't going to put 2 Republicans on the side.
I thought there's a seat for 5. No?
She made it. They created the committee. She filled her slots, and one of the slots she gave to.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Rather than the other, I think there are 5 more that supposedly McCarthy can fill.
Yeah,
right. And but she has oversight over that. If she doesn't like him, she can say no.
No, she doesn't get to appoint the Republican.
I thought that she has. Whatever.
No, I don't think she has any.
Okay, we need to look into that because that's crazy.
It's up to McCarthy to whether. I mean, McCarthy could not put anyone on the panel from blank, or he could fill it with blowhards.
In a way, he's in caught between a rock and a hard place because if he doesn't appoint anybody, then they've got control, and if he does, then where is he? After they said that they weren't going to, it's an interesting position he's sort of cornered himself into. I don't know how effective this thing is going to be anyway, and how quickly they can come up to some, conclusions. I mean, we need to say here that Kevin McCarthy spoke to Trump that day, and went and said this is outrageous. The minute that it happened, and then a few days later or a week later, after talking to Trump, he backtracked and said, "Oh well, So McCarthy's got his own problems in terms of this whole story, too. But do you? Yep.
No, he does. I assume he will fill the seats, and it'll be a mix of, Jim Jordan types and a couple of more sober sorts, and it'll be a contentious panel.
Yeah, and the Democrats will never play it as well as the Benghazi people played Hillary. They just don't know how to do that. They just don't fight with that kind of down on the dirt kind of fight. So I'm not sure what this whole thing is going to be about. But I guess we're going to wait to see, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the power of the commission will be what they find, not the sort of tone of how they find it.
I think they've already found it.
Well, there's no question, but, the power of new information. I mean, if they can find anything new about the origins of the attack or conspiracies or new footage or anything new is going to be of considerable value.
Well, as my friends on Twitter and other places say to me all the time, or ask me, I should say, come on, is any of this going to make any difference? Trump will be there. We're talking about Trump again because now the indictment brings Trump to the foreground. What happened on January 6th brings him back to the foreground. He goes on Hannity. He's back in the foreground. I mean, all of this just completely and utterly plays into Trump's hand. And you say?
Oh, I don't think it's the argument in that case would be don't indict Trump, don't do an investigation, don't do anything that raises his profile. But that seems like a poor course of action for a lot of reasons.
On the other hand, if they don't nail him at some point, yeah.
Yeah, no, look, I agree. I don't understand the logic that says you shouldn't do an inquiry because...
I don't think that's what they're saying. I think that everybody is just freaked out. I think that's a really perfect term here. Because, again, they just can't seem to nail Trump. They're going to get Weisselberg. They may get Kevin McCarthy. They may get this one now. But they don't ever get Trump.
Yeah, well, I think there's been a delusion that there's one smoking gun that will put Trump out of business, the P tape or some particular thing is, yes, there's one thing out there and it will end Trump's prominence as a figure in American political life. And I don't think that's how it works.
So what happens? That's interesting.
What happens? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't believe he'll ever go to jail, as we've discussed before. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I imagine the legal proceedings will continue, and there may be a breakup of the Trump Organization at some point. But I don't think he's ever going to jail or ever disappearing entirely from the political scene.
You don't think he's going to jail because you don't think that they're going to put him in jail? Isn't that what you said? You don't think that the powers that be would ever go after a sitting president?
I don't think there will be a criminal conviction of Trump that sends him to jail. No.
But I want you to clarify that because that can mean different things to different people.
Well, I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the legal case. I'm just guessing here. I think it's possible there's a criminal indictment issued of him at some point, but they can have a settlement before.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you're thinking, all right, so that's what I wanted to get to. Your position is they may actually find the goods, they may indict him and do all of that, there may be a trial, but you don't think it would go to trial because you think that the powers that be would say we don't do that to a former president. Is that?
Yeah, and I think they would accept a plea agreement from any first time criminal.
What first time? He's been doing it for years.
Well, he hasn't been indicted. He hasn't had a criminal indictment against him. And I don't think they would probably settle with him if he was Donald Smith in that case. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It's a guess. You're saying it.
We don't know.
Right. It all you can go with is gut right now rather than facts. Which brings you to the question of whether or not what happened yesterday serves Trump or hurts Trump.
Hurts.
You think hurts?
Yeah. I mean, they indicted the business, I mean, that's not good. They can't break up the business. That's not good for them. If Weisselberg has any goods on Trump that he can flip, there's now been a huge amount of pressure added to Weisselberg. I don't know what'll happen.
Yeah, but you don't think you said earlier you didn't think that he was going to. But I think
I'm just saying Trump's in a worse place today than he was on Monday. Yeah.
Well, here's where I would sort of disagree with you. Yes, he's in a worse place in terms of his business, but I think he's in a better place versus on his political career.
I think that's right for now, but we're not at trial yet. And
all right, well, but that's all that we're talking. We can only talk about now.
I would say he's nominally a little better politically.
Yeah. So and remember what I said last week about I'm worried about all sorts of things with people going crazy in the streets of Portland or wherever the hell they're going to go. I'm worried about uprisings, and I'll be very curious to see what happens in the next month or so, because I think that those maggots are going to be insane if this starts to get super ugly and their man is being hurt.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where I was. All right, let's move to the Supreme Court. Okay, what do you think about that the other day? Was that yesterday? I'm slow. Every day is the same as the day before.
Yeah, Thursday were the last opinions of the court for this term. They're off until October when they start hearing cases again. They usually have the most important cases for last, and these were pretty big decisions, about voting rights and about campaign disclosures.
Ta-ta voting rights, folks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, well, they definitely made it harder for any plaintiffs to try to overturn some of these Republican enacted laws in the states that have made it harder for citizens to vote. And, they didn't create a big invitation for people to launch suits. I think it's going to be much, much harder to overturn these laws. Not impossible, and but harder as a result of the opinion that Justice Alito wrote yesterday for the majority.
What are they thinking?
The Supreme Court?
Yeah, the ones who voted this craziness.
I think they believe that the Voting Rights Act has been interpreted in a broad, liberal, unrestrained way, that these are rights left to the states on how to conduct their elections, and that the Voting Rights Act, should be read much more narrowly. And I think that's guided their jurisprudence since, John Roberts got on the court. And, 8 years ago, they had a very big Voting Rights Act decision that rescinded the provision that required the certain states, mostly in the South, to get any electoral changes pre-approved by the Department of Justice before they could go into effect. That was a really big decision. Yesterday's was big, but not quite as big. And I think they're just cutting off the legal avenues for, the civil rights groups and a lot of plaintiffs in these cases. So I think it's going to be up to people to, either just muscle through and vote past these obstacles, or to, change the composition of their state legislatures and get these laws repealed or amended.
The laws themselves keep them from being able to do that.
That's the catch-22,
right?
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I think you got that just right, Halli.
Thank you, Matthew. Here's something else, though. This kind of a decision, you can say there are two ways to look at any court, the Supreme Court for sure. Political or ideological, or just law. And I think, they kind of played their cards in the beginning of the session and kind of went down the middle of the road. And like you say, they always leave the worst for last, the ones that are going to be the most controversial. I don't think there's any doubt that this is a conservative, wackadoodle, activist court. And that brings up the next question. Two things. One is they also made a decision on dark money, allowing it to continue. This, the Republican-led courts gave us Citizens United, which started all this crazy in our politics because of money in the first place. But this is an activist court. So my question to you is, number one, people were hoping that Justice Breyer was going to put in his resignation yesterday, who was one of the, center liberal kind of guys, and maybe they could replace him so we don't have what happened with, what's her name, when she died. But maybe it's time to pack the court, because this court is not serving the people of the United States of America. And I want to tell you, they're not in sync with we the people, because even center Republicans and the independents are not looking for the kind of crap these guys are throwing out of this court. I mean, if you look at all the poll numbers and the questions asked, Roe v. Wade, 78% of Americans don't want it revoked. People think that voters' rights should be shored up, and then along comes this court. So, what do you think?
Well, I agree. It's a conservative court. It's got,
I don't think it's conservative. I think it's activist.
Well, I agree. It's activist.
Okay.
There have been some decisions that have, comforted liberals, but for the most part, absolutely, it's conservative and activist. And it's going to render some decisions that will, I think, in the end, hurt Republicans. I think if they overturned Roe, I think, you never know how the politics of it will play out. And of course, I think it would be a huge, detonation in the middle of American life to have Roe overturned. I don't think would help Republicans politically at all for a lot of reasons. So, look, it's an activist court. I don't think Biden and and Schumer and Pelosi can pack it. I don't think they have the votes to do it. So, I don't think that's going to happen.
So, which brings me to Manchin and Sinema, because the handwriting's on the wall in multiple avenues here. Unless you do something with this filibuster, they're going to rule the roost. Period. End of conversation. I think we saw a little movement on Manchin this week, saying that he would be interested in some deal making on reconciliation.
Sure.
And I think after that Supreme Court decision came down, I think he's looking and saying, wait a minute too. That may be the interesting part about all of this, Matt. The Supreme Court can render its crazy right-wing lunatic asylum kind of, edicts. Interesting choice of word, but the one that I think applies here. But the other side of it is, in some ways, it can hurt them by emboldening people who they didn't think that would go down the route with the Democrats full bore. So, it is interesting, the seesaw of all of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, court packing, don't think it'll happen.
Yeah. I think if they had one more vote that was as wacky as this one was, I think that conversation would have been up for grabs. I'm still not sure it's not going to be, but we'll see. Hey, Matt.
Halli.
This week in Tucker Carlson, you got anything?
Oh, yeah, Tucker. What was Tucker had something? Oh, yeah, Tucker says the NSA is spying on him. And he has proof. And he knows it's true because someone he knows who works in national security told him something that he could only have known if he'd listened to Tucker's phone calls. And so Tucker has concluded the NSA is listening to his calls. He had a big back and forth with the National Security Agency. And he thought their statement was sort of a non-denial denial. And I suppose it's always possible they're listening to his calls, but I don't think so. But that's this week in Tucker. Tucker's a victim.
I mean,
the deep state.
Are you? Do you think he's healthy mentally, or do you think this is all show? I really. You watch him. I can't.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know what he believes and if he believes everything he said. I don't know.
Let me tell you how crazy right wing is. At the time yesterday that the indictment was coming down, I was in the car, which is when I listened to right wing radio. Okay, and so I'm driving along, and the indictment comes down, and Buck, whatever, the crazies who were taking over for Rush Limbaugh, who, by the way, they keep alive because you know that on. Do you ever listen to right-wing radio?
Not that much of the radio. No.
Okay. Well, if you're listening to the radio and you're listening to the Ian whatever, his old station, they keep him alive. They actually keep quoting him every 10 minutes. They run audio of Rush.
Oh, that's great.
Like he's still alive. I mean,
like he's in the next room. Right?
it's utterly bizarre. It's just bizarre. Like, how crazy these people are. But anyway, the indictment comes down, and of course they immediately go, these people who have been touting Christianity and, everything is God bless. And they say, oh, we all do it. We all steal $2 million from the government. I mean,
right.
Yes. Right. And you go, come on, these guys can't really buy into what they're saying. Tucker can't really buy into what he's saying and have a functioning, brain. So, I say no, none of these people are functioning brains. What's that guy, Gorka, the Hungarian guy?
Yes, Seb Gorka. Sure.
He says the same thing. He said they're coming after him, too.
Right. They're very concerned about him. Of course.
He's number one on their radar. But,
He's very, yes.
This is leading,
cares.
yeah. So, but this is all leading to now they're saying to fund the FBI.
To fund the FBI.
Yeah, that's the new clarion call from the Republicans to fund
defund the FBI. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they want to defund the deep state.
Matt, this is just scary. I'm sorry. I know. You've been doing this game much longer than I. But I get, because you're so much older than I am.
Well, this is pretty loopy. This is pretty loopy stuff.
It's getting into loopville. Okay. From the sublime to the ridiculous, troops are leaving Afghanistan after 20 years.
Yeah. Well,
I don't go along with this one.
The United States record has not been, we lost 2 wars in there. It's only 2021, 2 big wars lost. That's a lot.
I just don't think this is a good idea. I don't. I just don't. I just don't. What they're leaving behind a nightmare for women, mostly. But I just don't think this is a real smart move. But hey, what do I know, right?
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of reason to be optimistic that
it's going to descend into hell.
Yeah, that Afghanistan will be a beacon of peace and prosperity.
and people, the in the 21st century, it is let them kill each other. I don't know. I think it has far-reaching things. I just want to tell you that American Thinker, which is a right-wing publication, now says that Trump won California.
Trump won California?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They got a piece up this morning. I just wanted to put that in there because why not with all the crazy that we're talking about here? Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to get to that.
Yeah. All right. So from there we go into, let me just get my note here. Yeah, I've been kind of tough on Vice President Harris.
Right, tough on Harris.
Don't think she's playing her hand well. Last night comes out she's not playing her hand well. There's trouble in Harris's camp. Do you know about this? Did this come across your radar this week? And if not, yeah, okay. So there's talk of abusive behavior, not being able to get to Harris, her old team. This Tina Flournoy, who is her chief of staff, who came out of the Clinton White House, apparently is just tough as nails and is not making quick decisions. And it's a free-for-all for her. I've said all along that something's wrong there because the way she's handling everything is not cool, not cohesive. So Ron Klain did come out in support of Flournoy. but of course he's known her forever. And Cedric Richmond is who's somebody we should talk about, because this guy is very impressive. A senior advisor to President Biden also came out defending it, and Simone Sanders and the rest of her team. I don't know if it's too late to clean up the mess that I think that Harris is in, but it's politics. Maybe that's too tough to say, but things aren't going well for her. What do you think? Who is next in line to the presidency?
Well, look, I mean, it's July, it's July 2021. I mean, it's not the end of the term. But look, I think when these impressions start to take hold, that, a politician has some flaws and they're fundamentally not
a good organizer.
Not good at not good at the job, and they're not, they're politically in trouble. These impressions kind of become self-fulfilling prophecies. So you want to kind of cut those off early, but and she's not been terribly adroit at it. You and I talked about that she was pressured to go down and visit the border. I mean, whatever you think of that, she, it took time for her to kind of respond to that, and then she went. It was fine, but it wasn't handled in the greatest way. And I think these impressions start to settle in Washington, and I don't think she's being deployed especially well for a vice president. She's been given two big jobs, and they're both
hard
and basically guaranteed to fail. One is voting rights. Well, okay, that bill's largely dead, and the court's screwing with that, so there's no success to be had there. And the other is trying to staunch the flow of migrants out of Central America coming up through Mexico, and that's a complicated problem. That may ease on its own, but she's not really kind of flip a switch and make that happen. So she's in kind of a not great situation the way the White House has given her assignments. I mean, Biden's job was to, under Obama at this time, was to run the stimulus program, make sure there wasn't fraud, and to kind of be there when they handed out lots of checks and opened bridges and did stuff and spent money. And that's a good job.
Right, yeah.
And she didn't get that job this time. She's not running around getting to, spend money. I mean, I just, I feel badly for her in a lot of ways. I just feel like she's in kind of a no-win position right now. I can't get over with her, Matt. Remember during the primaries how she went after, in the debate after she went after Biden, which was a huge mistake, and it ended her chances for the presidency. I just don't think she may be a very bright woman, and she's got a certain charm to her. There's no question about that. But I just don't think she's politically adroit the way somebody in that position needs to be. And I think that was shown when she went after Biden. That was a reckless, bad, not thought through decision. So in that score, I think she's got a problem, because you can't fix that if her instincts aren't, up to par. You're right, though. She did get handed some bad, jobs, which is, one wonders why she got those jobs from Biden. What was he thinking? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could look at it a couple of ways.
Yeah.
Say, well, it's an act of faith. You think these are the tough jobs, and I think she can do them. Or you could say, like, here's the jobs that aren't going to work. You'll do them. I don't know. I mean, I believe he wants her to be a successful vice president. I don't believe there's any reason to think he's trying to undermine her. That's not in his interest.
Or it could be in his interest. I disagree. It could be in his interest. Good guy, good cop, bad cop. It takes the heat off of him if everybody's always focused on her crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a bit of a bank shot, but yeah, I see your point.
Yeah. So, I don't know, but she better clean up her act and fast.
I mean, having a shitty situation at the border is not going to be good for him either.
They just closed down 3 of the facilities for the migrant kids. I don't know. I don't know. It's not on the top of his radar, no matter how much the Republicans want to hit him on that. It just isn't. I don't know if that's a smart thing or a bad thing. I mean, maybe he's going to wait for some of the other issues to take a back seat before he goes after that. So anyway, we're not going to solve that, but they better solve that in her office in the West Wing, or uh-oh.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, uh-oh. Bill Cosby released from prison. Oh, my God, Matt.
Yeah. Well, he...
Technicality. Technicality is a technicality.
Basically technicality, basically bad, sloppy prosecution work. Look, he's still going to be hit with a ton of other suits and things, so I don't think his legal troubles are over, but it's a pretty remarkable turn of events.
For those who feel this is so horrid, let me just say this. He did serve, 2.5 years?
Yeah, he did do time.
He did do time. His life is completely upended. It will never be the same. It's interesting, Felicia Rashad, who was his co-star for so many years, still stands with him firmly and says this is all a bunch of crap. But I just want to make the point that, he's paid a price, and a heavy price.
Yeah. It's
never enough. It's never enough for something like that.
It's not the price the jury convicted him on, but yeah, look, he did pay a price.
Interesting.
And there's no doubt. I don't think there's no doubt about the evidence and the certainty of what he did. 60 women.
Yeah. I didn't pay close enough attention to know, but the attorney who screwed this up was Castor, the guy from Trump's impeachment. No.
I think that's right.
Yeah, Bruce Castor is his name. I called him Castor when all of that crazy.
It's the dream team. It's the dream team.
I mean, that's a story right there. I mean, that's like, all the wheels of justice turn into weird places these days. That's for sure. I'm going to talk about Biden's poll numbers. Two interesting polls. Polls are wacky. When I read the first one, forgive me, I don't remember whether it was Reuters or somebody, but it was showing that his poll numbers were down somewhat with Democrats. This morning, Ipsos came out with a poll that he was just tanking, like 30-something% with independents. And everybody, it's an outlier, except they forget that 2 days ago there was this other poll that his poll numbers were sinking with Democrats. Any thoughts?
I don't, I think you got to look at polls over a period and look at them in their aggregate. I mean, I think he's doing pretty well. He's not doing exceptionally well, but he's doing pretty well.
But I'm interested in why they would start to sink, whether they sink deeply or they just show an erosion. And I'm thinking to myself, the Democrats and the independents are not happy with his bipartisan talk, because they're angry. They're hungry. They want to see justice against Trump, and playing fair doesn't fit. They're as angry as the right is. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know what accounts for those numbers.
Well, let's keep our eyes on those numbers, because I think they're going to be.
We're going to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, because they're going to be interesting. Absolutely. Anti-Semitism is way up. I have to give it to CNN because they did a long piece which they ran. That's half their people are Jewish,
right.
But this is concerning. And a rabbi was stabbed outside Boston Synagogue this week. It didn't even make the national news. I mean, I know my temple down here, we had higher guards. I think this is very concerning, and Congress went and helped the Asian Americans the minute that that negative stuff started coming on them because of COVID, and I just don't understand where they are on this, which is 10 times worse, and it's not just in the United States, by the way, it's happening all over Europe. We've been here before. You have any thoughts?
I agree that it's alarming. It's of deep concern. I don't know how it stands compared to the Asian American violence spike that we've seen, but any kind of hate crime or ethnic attack is awful, and I hope they prosecute these attackers to the fullest extent of the law. I mean, this attack on a clergyman, on a rabbi, it's awful.
Bizarre. And I heard talk that there's a movement in Congress to start a commission on anti-Semitism. Did you read about that at all?
I haven't.
So I don't know if it's real or not real, but come on, Matt. This is, I'll go back to what I wrote in 2007 when I did the book on Obama, and my big fear with him was implicitly this, because up until him, you couldn't talk about Israel in a negative way. The genie was in the bottle. And if you go back, and I've done lots of research on this, Matt, it begins with Obama, Reverend Wright, talking about the Palestinians as if there's some equal, measure to them in terms of, who they are, where they are. I don't know how to put that, but you know where I'm going with that. And I just think that something's been unleashed that's not good. I don't see it getting better. I only see it getting worse unless something very specific is done. Chief of Staff is Jewish. I'm hoping that he moves on Biden to take a very firm stance against this before it's too late. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, on that fun note.
Merrick Garland's put a moratorium on federal executions.
On that fun note. Yeah, he has put a moratorium on executions. I don't think that's totally shocking.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Trump kind of geared up the machine. Federal executions have been so rare in the last 50, 60 years.
The whole execution should be rare.
Executions, yeah.
But, that's...
Elections are getting rarer, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no shock there.
Okay, Branson to space ahead of Bezos in the Boys Will Be Boys race to space contest.
Right. Yeah, just a lot of...
Crazy, huh?
Well, if I had a rocket ship, I might do the same.
Would you go?
I wouldn't have a rocket.
But would you
I
go?
don't know. Sure, why not?
Yeah,
It's
I don't
something
know.
to do.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a big space fan and spent half my childhood on that. I still have my letters from the first guys who went to space because, I was a big fan and wrote letters. But I got to tell you, I don't know. But these two are too funny for me. Men are so funny. You guys, you make me laugh.
No, well, we try to keep it
You try and keep me amused.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Donald Rumsfeld.
Rumsfeld, yeah.
Yeah. Boy, there was a controversial man.
Absolutely. And, as we come to the end, do you have any thoughts about the 4th of July?
I got two more things I want to get with you on before we get to the end, and then I'll tell you about my 4th of July. Newsom recall is going to happen. Whether he's recalled, I don't know, but the vote's going to happen.
Yeah, there's going to be a vote,
yeah.
Right.
850,000 jobs were created. Great stuff. Keep yakking away, GOP. You're not winning on that one. William and Harry did their Princess Diana thing this morning, and that was good. Meghan McCain quit The View. That is interesting. We need to get to that next week. I have a reason I want to talk to you about that. Britney Spears, the judge did not side with her, and her father maintains his head over the I can't even say the word, conservatorship. And Netanyahu, who? Because he's gone. Now, on to 4th of July. Matt, sad in a way. Sad in a way, because this country's a mess. And yeah, we made it to another year. Another celebration. Yeah? Did we? Are we celebrating? What are we celebrating? I don't know. I'm negative. What do you say?
Well, look, tough period here. January 6th attack of it, but we've seen worse.
Have we?
Yeah, I believe we have.
See, I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. So
you're writing me off.
It's a great country, and people still want to come here. If you're willing walk through the Mexican desert and come here, and people want to be here. The rest of the world knows where we're the place to be, and that's inspiring.
Matthew gets the last word on that. Good afternoon, Mr. Cooper.
Happy Independence Day, Halli. Hope you have a great holiday weekend. Be safe. Have fun.
You too, my love. Are they doing the thing in Washington that I used to love to go to?
The fireworks and the concert and all that stuff. Yeah. I think that's all on this time. So
that's good. Go nice for me and enjoy.
That. Yeah.
I'll speak to you next week, honey. Bye-bye.
Right, have a great holiday.
You too, sweetie. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec, LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.